Okay, Neron, you're the developer of the Black Dragon Viewer, and you just released an update that has a certain feature in it. And what is that feature?
Volumetric lighting.
And we're going to talk to you about for the hour next time, and maybe even I understand what volumetric lighting is then.
Oh, I hope so too. Hi, I'm Neron, and I'm the developer of Black Dragon Viewer, and you're listening to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. Joe Yardley.
Woohoo! Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. I'm here with Joe Yardley, 1920s Berlin. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
You sound different. You have a different headset. You're somewhere else today.
The NSA headquarters. Don't tell anyone.
In the station ID, we heard a German fella by the name of Neron, and he develops a third-party SL viewer called the Black Dragon. And if you haven't tried it, you should, because he's putting all sorts of visual goodies in there, and he just came out with an update that features something called volumetric lighting. And it improves the Second Life visual fidelity enormously, in my biased opinion. And my biased opinion is based on watching his YouTube video. I haven't tried his viewer, but he will be on the show in 2 weeks for the entire hour talking about what goes into developing a third-party viewer and how does he do this? How can he make Second Life look so good? Today our guest, though, is Karl Krantz, entrepreneur and organizer of the Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Meetup and the yearly SVVR Conference and Expo, which is coming back this year for the second time in May. It's up in Mountain View. I will be there, hopefully hosting a panel about the metaverse with some illustrious guests is yet to be announced. Today, Karl will give us the post-mortem, the debrief on Game Developers Conference, which was held in San Francisco last week. Thousands of visitors, hundreds of exhibitors, dozens of panel discussions, workshops, and such. The show today, Joe, is all about goggles and render engines, absolutely nothing about Second Life. So,
well, we've got 4 listeners. It would be a shame if we lost 3 of them.
That's what my mother told me. Always play for one person.
What coincidence.
That was in 3rd grade when with my recorder recital, and nothing has changed.
Yeah, we still got 1 listener, right? Hello, Loki.
Let's be serious for a second, because you can get in touch with us. You can ping the Avatar Drax Files. You can send us news, scoops, press releases. You can call us on Skype, Drax Files. You can send us an email, radio@draxfiles.com. You can become a sponsor with us. You can have your own banner displayed on the website and mentioned every single show. As a matter of fact, we do have a new sponsor, Damien Fate, with his brand Fate Wear, the brand for men, for real men like me. Men who live in the present, who have messed up hair and only have flip-flops until, Damien Fate came along and made awesome shoes.
Please tell me you don't wear flip-flops.
Now that Damien Fate is a sponsor of this show, I'm going to wear dress shoes and suits, Joe.
Okay, on behalf of everyone in Second Life, thank you, Damien, for that. Thank you very much. We've seen Drax's feet.
The hair will stay, but the flip-flops are gone.
Next, we need a sponsor who sells nice short hair for real men.
Okay, do you hear that, Loki? Our one listener, just make that hair, and we're good to go. You can also support us on an individual basis by taking out a voluntary subscription of $100 Linden per month. It's $25 Linden per show. So let's go to news, Joe, real quick. So the Black Dragon Viewer, I mentioned it at the top of the hour. If you're impatient, in 2 weeks you'll hear from Neron himself with his heavy German accent. It's going to be a marvelous European show. But in the meantime, you can read on Inarape's Mortem World blog all about what volumetric lighting is and all the features that the Black Dragon Viewer has in its current version. Will you be using that? Will you be going from Firestorm to Black Dragon? Or are you totally Firestorm?
Oh, yeah, I only use Firestorm. I really need most of the tools that they've got, just the radar and the contact sets. These are all things that I really need when I'm trying to be a big brother in 1920s Berlin.
The official viewer is something that you have not used, or you used it and then abandoned it for whatever the reason is?
Yeah, I haven't used it in years. Mm-hmm. I use it sometimes like once or twice a year when Firestorm has an issue, or when I need to check something or things like that.
That's still a phenomenon that fascinates me on a sociological level, but that's for another show. Now, big news from our sponsor SL Go by OnLive. You can now pay for your SLGO subscription in world.
Yeah.
On their sunny dream island.
Are they hippies as well?
You know, Joe, everybody in Silicon Valley is a hippie and a neoliberal at the same time. It's the best of both worlds. People have long hair and flip-flops and still pray at the cathedral of the almighty dollar. Isn't that awesome? They will share the joint with you, take a photo of you, and then they monetize that photo. That's how it works. You didn't know that?
No.
Let's get back to the point. I caught up with Senior Product Manager at OnLive, Dennis Harper. He's been on the show many times before. Here he is with the details of that new model. No credit card needed. Sign up in world, pay with Lindens. Here's Dennis Harper with one preliminary caveat, though, of this new payment system. Take a listen.
We need to limit it to new users only right now because existing users with monthly subscriptions pay in US dollars, and it's a very complicated technology to transition from one to the other. We're working on it right now, but that will come very soon as well. So we'll be able to, existing users will be able to use this feature as well. But new users coming in, you're going to be able to go to our island and very simple private sign-up booth. You go to a private sign-up booth, and all you have to do, no credit cards required, no name is required, your anonymity is yours, your privacy is guaranteed. All you have to do is fill in a small form with your email and get signed up. You pay our payment orb for 1, 2, or 4 weeks. You can pay as much as you want ahead of time. It's like renting land or something like that, right?
How far can they pay ahead?
They can buy up to 4 weeks at a time, but they can buy another 4 weeks after that, and we stack those on top of each other.
I always foresee negative things, so I foresee a lot of people canceling their subscription with it's based on their credit card, and then all of a sudden you're losing a lot of business, and you have one day where there's no business, and the next day they all sign up in World.
Believe me, we thought about this. Okay, we thought we've said that's what we call cannibalization, right? It's where one subscription will cannibalize another one. And so right now it's limited. It's a very limited trial program for us. And that's why I said we're going to see how people operate and we're going to see what they do. Because if people, for instance, if they come in and they buy a week and they never come back, well, that's going to really hurt our other subscription model, right? But I don't think that they're going to do that, though. I think that it's going to be really wildly popular. If it is successful, then what we're going to do is we're going to provide a vehicle where people can transition from their existing subscriptions into a Linden subscription.
And people who have been on the fence and who have a limited amount of funds so that they cannot commit to a long-term credit card on file situation, these people will go in, I'm convinced.
And also we've had a lot of people tell us that one of the reasons that they don't like to sign up for services is because of their privacy. They don't want people to know. Second Lifers are, they're private people, right? The anonymity is important to them, and we understand that, and so that's why we wanted to offer this service.
The last place on the internet where you can use your anonymity to heal yourself or to troll. Whatever floats your boat.
I've had a couple of those in my chat room already, so.
So that was Dennis Harper from OnLive, who is answering fans and trolls alike 24/7 in the SLGO group chat in World. So what do you think, Joe, with this subscription option, Linden dollars in World?
I think that's a great idea. I don't even have a credit card, so there's lots of things I can't do. And, it also saves you from having to transfer your Linden dollars to regular money and then pay with that. And so it's less hassle. The only thing that I'm wondering about, and I haven't found an answer yet, maybe does this mean that the people who officially, according to the SLGO website, can't use SLGO yet because of where they live, can actually try SLGO?
Ooh, that is a good question. But I would venture to guess no. I hope that Dennis will clear that up for us in the comment section. The problem with using SLGO, for example, in Germany, as I understand it, is still very rigorous regulation in terms of making video games accessible in Germany. Mm-hmm. Basically because OnLive offers all sorts of M-rated games in their streaming service. Technically, it's a 18 and over service.
True, but when you sign up in World, you don't have to give them your country.
But the streaming goes through your internet connection and through your internet service provider and the address that you have, the IP address. The server knows where you're located in the world, so they can block it just like YouTube based on copyright restrictions or other restrictions in different countries.
We can bypass that though. Us, the anonymous hackers.
Don't say that. I don't want to get, the FBI coming in the door. I know that there are things like that, little plugins, browser plugins. I heard of them.
Oh, no. My former colleagues at the FBI said that that's okay. Nothing to worry about.
Next news item, Loki. Hey, our only listener to this show made an anime avatar, and it is just so absolutely amazing. And you can pick it up for free. You should read it on his blog and pick up that anime avatar. All his clothes are now that Loki makes have a cel-shaded option.
So just for us really old people, what's anime?
It's a Japanese form of animation, that Japanese style of drawing from the manga comics.
With the big eyes.
That's right.
Okay.
And there is only Utilizator Mode, a Second Life content creator that had created an Avatar 2.0 anime style, which is very cool. I've used those avatars before many times, but I think Loki's is a little bit...
He's a genius.
He's just a genius.
He is.
Loki, you can pay me in Linden dollars for what I just said. No PayPal required.
Everyone in Berlin is wearing Loki's clothes, by the way. Our friend Herr Etzel, we can't get him out of those clothes. And some of the girls try really hard.
I will tell Mrs. Etzel.
Sure.
All right.
She's in Berlin as well.
Okay, before we go to Karl Krantz and his GDC report, a new feature of the show, our musical interlude, where we try to prove that SL musicians are awesome. And Joe, you actually brought this to my attention. It was written up elsewhere as well. Jordan Rain is based in Berlin. She's from New Zealand. Her music is pretty cool. It's very dark, electronic. There's some folk in there, some acoustic folk, but then the electronica, this kind of a nice mix is kind of up my alley. Hard to classify. She has tons of music videos on her YouTube channel, which are very cool, very minimalist, which also begs the question, Joe, that you blogged about recently. Again, when we talked about it, we need more music videos made in Second Life, right? I mean, Jordan Rain would be a person that I want to see team up with a really good machinima maker and just knock out a bunch of really cool music videos.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, I just blogged about it. I want to. We've talked about this before on the show. We're trying to get people to create these music videos in Second Life because that might be the thing that reaches a massive audience. And I found one I really liked, and then a few people suggested more. So I hope people will keep finding these. I hope that that people keep sending us these videos, and that people are going to make more.
What I have to stress, though, and it's totally legitimate to make music videos based on your favorite song that's already out there, or maybe the current hit song du jour, if you will. But what I find the next step should be is to make videos of music made by Second Life artists, so that we can show, hey, there is musical talent in world, and there is also this visual talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, that is the golden combination. Someone who makes the music in Second Life on a video made in Second Life, built in a Second Life sim. But but also a really nice video, like for instance, the one called After the Storm. Is really nice, and they used the song by Mumford and Son, and that's that's a really nice song. So it works both ways. But
no, you're right, absolutely. Because if people look on YouTube for After the Storm or Mumford and Sons, and then that video might come up too. So which is another cool thing.
I would love to see a video clip, really gloomy, with, for instance, a Billie Holiday song. I mean, can you imagine that? A gloomy Sunday, shot in Berlin with rain and people walking through the dark streets. Oh, I can see it now.
Well, there is in fact a Billie Holiday song, "Strange Fruit," that was made into a machinima a while back by Rise and Fall, who is a great machinima maker. He's been a little bit silent these last few months. But yeah, so the field is wide open, guys. Listeners, come on, do it. But let's stop talking because we want to listen to some Jordan Rain. Jordan Rain from Second Life, from Berlin, real life Berlin, from New Zealand. Here's Jordan Rain with a song called Birth Ritual. So that was Jordan Rain with a song called Birth Ritual. As we go to air Friday, Jordan is playing a bunch of gigs in Second Life over the weekend. And you can check out Ciaran Laval's blog. She has all the dates there and the slurs to catch a show. But now it's time to play my conversation with Karl Krantz, organizer of the SVVR conference, organizer of the Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Meetup, and the annual amazing VR Expo in Mountain View at the Computer History Museums coming up in May. He was at the Game Developers Conference last week in San Francisco. He hosted a VR mixer, Joe, in that virtual world called Converge.
Ooh.
With the floating head avatars. We talked about it last week.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one that runs with Oculus. So, we mocked it a little bit, but Karl will talk about it a little bit. Maybe there's something to it. He had 1,000 people in the physical world at the VR mixer. So he will talk about everything we need to know. And by we, I mean us, the insular, isolated second lifer, the underdog, the never accepted little brother of the goggle wearer.
Oh, come on. Get a grip.
You don't feel excluded?
I know. I was born excluded. I don't care.
Here's Karl setting the scene for us who were basement bound while all these guys had fun in the city.
It's at Moscone Center. So Moscone is a large convention center that can handle these really large conferences. The first couple days are sessions and panels and talks. And, GDC is one of my favorite conferences because the sessions they can get very technical, and there's a lot of them, and they cover a wide variety of topics. The last few days, there is an expo floor, which is, several hundred exhibitors. It's pretty big. It's not quite as big as E3, but there's something about GDC that it's a little more grassroots and genuine, and it's a lot friendlier to indie developers and people that are kind of on the edges, experimenting with things. So I think VR is very much a big deal at GDC.
That's something I wasn't aware of. I thought it's all sort of bigger games as opposed to something like Indiecade. I thought maybe GDC was overtaken by now by the big publishers of big titles, but you're saying there's really smaller guys in there too, exhibiting and doing some talks and panels.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't have Indiecade is very friendly if you're an independent developer as far as giving you places to show. GDC has some of that, not quite to the extent of Indiecade, but I think overall there's probably more content that's relevant to indie developers at GDC than there is at Indiecade, just because it's a much bigger show.
VR, as you indicated, was dominating.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, it was all that was on anyone's mind. I mean, I as somebody who's been walking around for years being like, VR is coming and, sounding like a crazy person, it's kind of amazing to just be on the elevator and the escalator and just hearing everyone everywhere, all they talked about was VR.
Sorry to interject. So you went from a crazy person to an accepted person. I'm still a crazy person because I'm still saying SL is awesome.
You'll get that. Your time will come.
I don't know.
But yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, I believe, I'm sure you do, that VR is bigger than just gaming, but GDC is a big deal in the emerging VR industry and ecosystem. I mean, we've had big announcements at GDC in the past couple of years from Oculus and Sony, and now the Valve HTC Vive. It's definitely proving to be, one of the big shows in the VR space that we all need to pay attention to. So there was a lot of VR people there, and I met a lot of developers who are working on non-game applications who were at GDC just because of the VR presence, even though they weren't game developers in the traditional sense.
Now, headsets, what we discussed last week is the kind of absence in terms of announcement, the Oculus folks, but HTC Vive, or I called it Vive, but Vive is probably more accurate. We named 3 or 4 last week. We named the Game Face Labs because they are positioning themselves as a head-mounted console because they have all the computing stuff right in the headset. And then we have OSVR and then HTC Vive, the collaboration with Valve. What is your top 3?
The top 3 for me on the hardware side is Oculus still. The Crescent Bay, I mean, it's getting better and better. So I got to try some Crescent Bay demos that I hadn't seen before. There was one with Smog from The Hobbit that was, I guess, in partnership with Epic and NVIDIA. They created this demo, and it was just basically like being inside the movie. That was amazing. It was really effective use of graphics and 3D sound as well. So the Crescent Bay is getting better. It felt a little bit lighter and a little bit better from what I felt last time I tried it at CES. I'm not sure if that was in my head or if it's actually a newer version, but I believe it was a slightly updated version.
Did you even ask the question, when are they coming out, now that everybody is sort of at least sort of saying that they will come out at some point in the holiday season or whatever? I don't know what the last announcement is.
Yeah, no, they're not saying anything. And actually the guys they have working the booths these days are not Oculus employees even. People running the demos are really just the demo people. But that being said, I personally believe that E3 is going to be the big show for them. So I think we'll see the consumer version at E3. I don't think they'll actually have it ready to ship at E3, but as you said, probably for the holiday season. So the Crescent Bay I had tried before, and there were some incremental improvements, I believe. The second one I tried was the new Sony Morpheus.
Right, I forgot to mention, yeah. It looks really sleek. It looks kind of aesthetically the coolest to me.
And ergonomically, it's really comfortable. And that surprised me. I mean, the Crescent Bay and the latest Morpheus are really neck and neck. I mean, the Morpheus now no longer has the motion blur it suffered from. The display looks better. They actually showed one of the demos was at 120 hertz, which that's the highest I've tried in VR, and that seemed to make a difference too for me. I mean, I know jumping from 75 that you have on the DK2 to 90 in the Crescent Bay, that makes a big difference in just comfort level and presence. They had a couple demos that I got to try. one with these cutesy little robots that were reacting when you looked at them, and then another one that was more like you were in a gunfight, and there was this, NPC that kind of got all up in your face, and it was very good. I think there was a sense that the Sony Morpheus was a little bit behind Oculus, but they are absolutely neck and neck now.
So you did feel that you saw a difference between 90 frames per second hertz, the frequency, versus 120?
Yeah, I think I do. A lot of people would say no, and if I was looking at two screens side by side,
because I'm coming from the audio field, and there's always this thing like, oh yeah, it's 192 kilohertz. It sounds a lot better. And I don't know. I mean, I have pretty good ears. With a lot of stuff, I don't hear the difference.
Yeah, you know what? When it comes into play because an LCD screen because the image is moving. Your head is moving. So the higher the hertz, the better. I think we're going to keep feeling a difference into several hundred with that, just because as you move your head around, the whole image is moving, and this plays into the motion blur, and it's just like a comfort. It's hard to describe what it is. I mean, if you put these two side by side displays, and one was 75 and one's 90 and one's 120, and they're kind of next to each other and they're just regular LCDs, you're probably not going to tell the difference. But if you put them into an HMD, stick them on your face and start moving your head around pretty quick, I think you really will feel the difference, up to several hundred.
How about OSVR? Did you talk with these guys? Did you try their headset?
Did not get to try the latest OSVR. I had tried it at CES. I felt it was somewhere between DK1 and DK2. It's hard to get excited about something that's kind of at the level of DK2 still, when Oculus has moved on, past DK2 to Crescent Bay, and everyone else is at such a, so much further along.
But philosophically, they're also positioning themselves as the open source guys. So
they are. There is a difference, as a couple of people pointed out, between open source and open standard. So it's not really an open standard. Open source, that's good. I think there's going to be a lot of open source projects like this. I love the idea, the concept. I hope it takes off. We'll see. I think time will tell there. I'm also a little bit, I am aware that I think it's early for standards, for open standards in VR, because we're so early. Anything that will restrict options among these manufacturers, I think we're close to getting good VR, but nobody's really gotten great VR yet. And anything that will restrict the options is, it's not ideal at this point. What a developer is developing for as far as resolution or, tracking, that kind of thing. This lower level hardware, I think it's too soon to push any sort of standard, because we're still figuring out what works. I mean, people are trying different display types and different tracking systems, and, nothing is really settled as here's how we're going to do it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I was a little confusing the issues here, because I was going to ask you about if OSVR, what they actually are planning on the software side. That was confusing to me, and thank you for delineating open standards versus open source. So I actually have no idea what they're proposing on the software side, because on the website it's a little bit unclear to me.
Yeah, I'll admit I'm also not that well educated on the OSVR initiative. It's just been such a busy few months that I haven't caught up as much as I'd like to.
Okay, we're gonna get these guys and have it straight from their source. Now, the HTC Vive.
So that was the third big one I tried, and that was so I'll let me qualify this in saying I did not get the official Valve demo, so I had a very, very short demo that was kind of piggybacked on someone else's. They were picking who to bring in and who not to bring in, and they had very limited slots and very limited HMDs. So they were also unveiling this at Mobile World Congress at the same time. I think more of the demo units were actually out in Barcelona than were at GDC, which is kind of interesting that they were doing this kind of dual unveil the same week, in two different parts of the world.
America is not number one anymore. I'm sorry.
Well, and Mobile World Congress is apparently, at least as big as CES, and probably bigger. And considering how important mobile is, that's probably the most important conference. So I had a very limited demo. I only tried one experience in the Vive, which was the Blue from Wii VR, formerly known as Wemo Lab. They have this experience called the Blue, which is on the Gear VR store. And they had a variation of that they made custom for the Valve HTC. And although it was not really an interactive experience, they did actually have a little bit, like there were fish swimming around and you could kind of scare them off with your hands using the controllers. The big difference that both the Sony and the Valve HTC has over the Oculus as controllers. I mean, the Sony has their Move controllers, which they've had forever, but they just happen to be like really great VR controllers. And then the Valve system, they had their controllers, which it was not too far off from holding the 6 Sense stems in doing that in the Oculus. It was very similar as far as, the interaction.
So you're holding two kind of sticks with ski handles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was like. So these kind of two stick controllers that had thumb pads. So the thumb pads were exactly like the Steam controller, which was nice. And on the Steam controller, if you have one of those, it's this kind of touch-sensitive area. What's nice about using that in VR is you can actually see where you're touching, as opposed, it's like having a display and a touchpad together, because, the display part is virtual in VR only, but, you're in VR, so you can kind of see and have that visual feedback, which was really nice. So with the Valve HTC version, although I read the specs that it has the same field of view as the Crescent Bay, for some reason it felt like a wider field of view to me personally. And I know these things can vary from person to person depending on your IPD and everything and the size of your head, but it felt to me like the widest field of view I've seen in VR, which I think is still probably the most important thing as far as immersion. Just, get that field of view as wide as you can. The screen was beautiful. I've read the specs that the screen was a slightly higher resolution. They're using 2 screens, slightly higher resolution than the Crescent Bay or the Sony Morpheus. It was really beautiful. The experience I was in, I mean, it just, there was no pixels. There was no artifacts at all. I mean, I just immediately was convinced I was somewhere else.
That's what TechCrunch said. They saw the future of VR and its HTC Vive.
So that said, it was really good, but it was not 10 times better than the Crescent Bay or the Morpheus. There was a few things that were a tiny bit better, but they're all pretty much in line, and they're all pretty much at the same space. And that's a really good place where they all are. I mean, VR is in a really good place. If this is the cutting edge right here, these 3, it's really promising.
Now, real quick to Game Face Labs, did you try those?
I did not. I was looking for Ed. I did not actually get to try the latest Game Face Labs. I was looking forward to that too. I was hoping to see him there.
Yeah, Ed Mason and I from Game Face Labs, we play email tag, and we didn't get around to taping an interview because he was such a presence at SVVR. I mean, he's like the best salesman that I've seen.
Yes, he's like always the best dressed guy in VR. So nice, the hardest working guy. He's everywhere. Every show I go to, and no matter where it is in the country or the world, he's there, running around, looking good.
Now, you mentioned content earlier. The Hobbit and Smaug was in there in the demo, and you were in the movie, and that's always my thing where it's impressive when Hollywood and people who are compensated well and have big resources do amazing things. It's a given, but obviously I'm sort of the champion of the amateur, if you will. And
I'm right there with you too. For a long time, I actually thought that it was a mistake to focus too much on this kind of pro level content and higher resolution, because I've experienced so much magic in places like Second Life, just user generated content. Yeah. I think that's where you get the beauty and the variety, and you just get all the crazy wild ideas. Oh, that being said, I am starting to really see the value of having these professional level studios, especially with some of the latest Crescent Bay demos. They've really upped the ante as far as the content in their demos. It just keeps getting better and better, and it makes a huge difference, I have to admit.
I was actually going to ask you about the opening up of all these creation engines that have such a high fidelity also, and these really great rendering engines like the Unreal Engine, and then on the heels of that, Source 2, and then Unity 5 is free all of a sudden. So there's this race in that field, which then again is actually kind of cool, because now these tools become available for the individual at home to possibly author also content that might be on par, or at least has a chance to be on par with some bigger design studio content.
Yeah, I mean, the tools are just getting better and better, and it's now, there's now becoming less of a difference between the indie tools and the pro level tools. I mean, as you said, they're all becoming cheaper or free at this point.
How was that discussed at the GDC? Was there talk around that? How that's changing the game in any which way, opening things up, or is that also VHS versus beta in the engine game now?
I think there's a slightly different type of person is attracted to Unreal versus Unity. And I think Unity, you probably get a little more of the people that like the diversity of the asset store and, this having this really rich community of people that you can ask for help. Unity, you can't beat Unity as far as like, if you want to, throw something together and you don't really know what you're doing, but there's just infinite resources out there, forums and places to discuss and get help. And there's so many users where maybe that's a little harder right now with Unreal. But there's the people that are really attracted to visual fidelity and lighting and effects seem to, migrate towards Unreal. And as even though they don't have this, the asset store and they don't have it's a little harder to leverage the work of others, which is something you can do in Unity, but you can get a nicer finished product, at least right now.
But that might change exactly because for the reason that they're free now, and that might attract people, and then there's more dialogue around it and more help comes out or more tutorial videos or whatever.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope we can see some asset stores pop up where you can actually use the assets across multiple engines. And, a lot of this is, translatable, certainly, models or sounds or scripts.
Which leads me to my next question. And we are critical on this show. We are fanboys and gals, but is Second Life completely obsolete now that render superior render engines are there? What does Second Life still have to offer?
Well, I mean, it has a lot of lessons to offer. That's for sure. Nobody has more experience on actually running a large scale massive global virtual world.
Right. That's like saying to an alcoholic, hey, you have a lot of experience being totally drunk. Thank you for that.
Well, if they can apply that. So, Ebbe, I saw Ebbe a number of times at the conference. We did this big VR mixer event on Thursday night where we got everyone in the VR community together. And, we had multiple floors. We had 1,000 people there. It was crazy. We had a whole floor of indie developer VR experiences downstairs. And Ebbe was down there trying them all. I saw him. And Philip was there. And, they were all there. So, I mean, I haven't given up on Second Life. I haven't given up on Linden Lab, certainly. I know they're brewing something behind the scenes, and I don't think they're quite ready to show it, but I do not discount them. I think that they have the knowledge, the domain expertise through running Second Life, and just this institutional knowledge from doing this for so long, plus the resources. I mean, Linden Lab is still a pretty profitable company, despite maybe losing some membership in the past few years. I think they're still doing pretty well financially. And if they can, put that money into a next generation platform, which it seems like they're doing, I do not discount them at all. I think they still have a great shot at really taking advantage of all this technology, and also everyone else who's doing stuff now. I mean, we're all early. There really is nothing. There is no VR hardware out there that's really consumer ready at this point. I mean, the Gear VR maybe, but it's missing some key features like positional tracking. So it's more of a kind of a glimpse, a little taste of the future, as opposed to actually a viable platform.
I think the whole economic aspect that they have succeeded in handling all those microtransactions, for instance. I want to see Facebook. Facebook has not successfully done anything like that on that scale.
And I think probably where Linden Lab and Philip Rosedale, too, with High Fidelity. I think where these people that have been in the virtual world space for a long time are going to have a real advantage is, when you run a virtual world, it is hard. The community piece is hard. I mean, the community of Second Life is, for a long time, I felt like it was really very negative. Because there really is this, what I realized, it's not negative. It's just that the people that inhabit these worlds really feel like they live there, and it's so important to them. They have such a stake in it.
The sense of ownership that they have, yes.
Yeah. I mean, any little minor change has some serious consequences. And people in virtual worlds, I think what we're going to learn in the future is that they need to feel like they have representation. It needs to be treated more like a government than a company running a product. And I think that a lot of this new generation of VR companies, they're not going to get that. But I think that the people that have been in virtual worlds for a long time are going to understand that. And if they can figure out how to make that work with their corporate structure and their lawyers and their legal teams, I mean, I always thought the right approach was, when Linden Lab, they called they called their users residents, and in the very beginning, a lot of the language was around, this being a new country, and I think that's probably the best way to frame something like this. And if you can give your users a sense that they have a stake in governance of that virtual world, then they're going to be a lot happier.
You put the nail on the head, because I think a lot of people who have not done it may really underestimate the complexity of dealing with a diverse population like that has such a sense of ownership. I mean, it can be very rewarding, but it can be a complete nightmare. I certainly don't want to.
Yeah, and we've seen it all in Second Life, right? We've seen like the community basically with like pitchforks and like, I mean, and just giving people a say, or giving them a place to voice their opinions and to give them some sort of say in features and especially changes that can affect people's, lives and livelihood. I mean, that's really important.
That's an enormous responsibility.
I don't see a lot of this kind of new wave of VR social space companies. I don't see them giving any indication that they understand that yet or have dealt with that. So that's where I feel like, Philip and Ebe and those guys are going to have a real advantage.
A few more questions about Philip, because you mentioned, and it related to that. What is your sense, again, of the need, or of the possible success of a virtual world? We ask this almost every week. Philip is talking about potential billion, frequently. But is it really? I mean, I like to believe that. I like to believe that there's a market for this open-ended virtual world where you can create stuff, blah, blah, blah. But then again, you have tons of demos. You have different game engines of different complexity. Maybe there is absolutely no market for something like High Fidelity or Second Life 2. What do you think?
I think there is definitely a market, and it's really big. I just don't think it's the only market. I think it's a lot easier for someone to get their head around. So I'll use one example. There are these guys doing a virtual space called Converge, and they basically made a virtual dance club. And so we actually connected that to the dance floor at the VR mixer we did during the event. So there was like a two-way link between the virtual world and the real world. That was a fun thing, but I think the point there is that it's one little feature of a virtual world like Second Life or High Fidelity, that you can go to a dance club and dance. And that's just a tiny little feature out of a billion features, but it's a lot easier for marketing purposes or for mind share, for someone to get their head around, okay, this is the thing I use for dancing. I use this app for dancing, as opposed to this place inside of another virtual world. It's like this extra layer of muck that people have to get their head around. Like, I'm going to go inside a virtual world and then go to a place.
but that goes to the issue where certainly I have this identification with my avatar as my extension, and that's what I really enjoy. I'm in with that avatar, but it seems to me, and I don't know, I don't have the data, but younger folks, my son and his friends, they have no real connection to individual avatars. So the avatar portability is not even an issue for them. They go from this game to that game, they have a good time. But for me, maybe it's an age thing. I have no idea. And that would speak would speak for what you're saying, that, yeah, you have these individualized experiences, and maybe we don't really need a layer of a unified world at all.
I think that even if we do these very independent, some Unity experiences, some Unreal, some, these purpose-built experiences and platforms, I think we'll still want some sort of avatar portability. So I think some sort of standard may emerge on top of that will allow you to bring some aspects of yourself from one to another. And whether that works in concert with High Fidelity or Second Life, or if it's something else.
This is a whole philosophical discussion.
It gets very messy, right?
It gets very metaversial,
Yeah, metaverse. I like the idea of a platform that this is where all the this is a virtual world platform.
Exactly. I mean, just like the real world, right? I mean, imagine you step onto a plane, you go to a different country, and all of a sudden you come out looking different. That to me is weird. I want to arrive at that other country, the same person, but maybe with different clothes, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I hope that, I think that even then, though, there'll be several, I mean, High Fidelity and whatever Second Life or whatever Linden Lab is working on. And then,
And
there
Face
are
World.
others. Yeah. And whatever that is. And then, some of these other newer ones are growing really quickly. I think that no matter what we wind up with, there'll be something on top of it that kind of connects them together, a little bit of a glue that will allow you to bring, some of your identity from one place to another. And maybe that's a good way to go. Yeah. Hopefully not. I think it needs to be something more open than that.
We're both not fans of Facebook winning that whatever battle or war we're in.
Well, I think that what we share and most people in Second Life and High Fidelity and other virtual worlds is that we share this
empowering the anonymity.
The possibilities that open up when you can try anything and be anyone. You don't have to be yourself. It's like a chance to just experiment with identity, and there's something really magical about that. And Facebook has never really been in line with that, and they don't. You have to use your real name, and that takes like half the fun out of virtual worlds for. I think a lot of people.
It's going to be so fascinating, though, to really see when they come online with whatever they're working on and how that's going to be, what the reception of that is going to be on a larger scale. I mean, that's the biggest social experiment, I feel, because like what you just said, I mean, I just don't buy into it that the majority of the world's population embraces the Mark Zuckerberg, hey, high school yearbook model. If we had choice, I think most people
maybe they'll see that this is I don't know, maybe it is in a bigger market, so that maybe they'll change their ways in order to adapt to this because they see us, long term, possibly a bigger opportunity. We'll find out, but as long as there are alternatives, I don't think there's a real danger of that taking over everything right now.
Some people think the Hershey bar is the best chocolate bar because it's at the checkout counter right there in front of your face.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, let's wrap this up. You mentioned the Converge, and I apologize for a little quip that Joe and I did on the last show. Converge, wow, there's a virtual world with floating heads and it's a dance party. But I understand it's pretty cool that you put the mixer in there. They were I don't know what the numbers were, how many were in there. It's easy. You can easily download. It works right away with the Oculus. So
yeah, it's a very small, virtual world. That's just this very small single purpose.
Connect right away with folks and be in the same space, have a shared space experience.
Yeah, and it's not too complicated. There's really nothing to configure. You choose between like one of 12 heads. They're basically just a head, but they have the head movement is tied to the HMD head movement. So it really, that turns out is enough to give you kind of a sense that a person's there. And when you're listening, you can get some body language just from the position of the head.
Is there voice in there?
Yes, they have voice in there. We weren't able to use that in our link because of the music and everything, but
and text or any type of other communication?
I've never used or seen the text chat. I don't think so. I think it's just voice.
I guess that's still the conundrum with how to actually nobody has figured that out at GDC, I suppose.
Yeah, how to type in VR. It's still a challenge. I've been thinking about this. I think we're going to wind up with someone taking like a Leap type sensor and just flipping it down at your keyboard, and you'll just have a zone where if you put your hands under there, it appears in the virtual space, and it's not there if your hands aren't there. So at least you can kind of feel your way to your keyboard with your hands.
I think Joe said that a couple of months ago. If you just start typing, then the keyboard appears in midair, and then you just have the hand tracking and the hands and your fingers are touching the virtual keyboard in midair.
Yeah, I think tying that to a physical keyboard, because it's kind of hard with a virtual keyboard without the tactile feedback. But if you can just, have some sensors that are looking at your keyboard and then they'll see when your hands are there. And I think something like the Leap would actually work really well for that because it's a known position. It's not moving too much. It's not aiming up at lights, and there's not a lot of unpredictable background interference.
Did you try Cyberith? Cyberith from Austria, around the corner from my home country.
I did not try them at GDC. I don't think they were here, were they?
They actually they have an office in Silicon Valley now. So
okay, yeah. No, I have tried the Cyberith though, and yeah, I tried it. We did an event for them a few months back, right after SIGGRAPH.
There is still nothing in that space other than Virtuix, Cyberith, and Infinidec, which is still £1,000 and $4,000.
Yeah, Infinitec is still a kind of prototype stage. There's some interesting things. There's interesting low-cost alternatives, like Stomps is one that's kind of come out of the VR community, where it's just basically little clip-on IMUs that go on your feet, and you kind of do this hint of walking. It's so you still have a little bit of movement of your feet, and you like lean forward and lean your foot forward and backward to go forward and backward, and you can like kind of waddle as you're seated.
For our listeners, I just want to throw in real quick that we're talking, of course, about the omnidirectional treadmill segment of the market, which I'm excited about because then potentially in a small house or a room that you have available, you can create this entire holodeck.
Yeah, the whole locomotion thing is still not solved. I mean, the Virtuix Omni was at GDC and it's looking even more polished now. It's looking more like a final product. It's getting better and better. And then the Cyberith, which, as you were just talking about, I didn't try that, but it's a similar idea where it's this kind of friction surface, low friction surface where you kind of slide along and you're in this frame that holds you in place.
But what do you mean it's not solved? I mean, if that works, I haven't tried those, but if it works, it looks lightweight, it looks fairly small. You can pop it into a room.
Yeah, I think it's just not I think they're still somewhat limiting. I mean, for one, there's a little bit of a barrier. Both the Cyberith and the Virtuix Omni require this kind of groin strap thing, which is kind of like mountain climbing gear. And for me, like that's just a big turnoff. Like that I have to wear this kind of diapery thing. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever wear that.
In Ready Player One, he's suspended with some rubber things from the ceiling. Come on, it's already an improvement over Ready Player One.
Yeah, there is something like disturbingly similar with these things and those kind of the things you put like infants in to teach them to start walking around the kitchen. It really does feel like that. I'd like to see a true omnidirectional treadmill that is not 1,000 pounds and $4,000 like the Infinitec. Something with actual moving belts that go in all directions. They just have to get smaller and lighter and cheaper.
We talked about this projector, Immersis, which looks cool, the trailer. I mean, you can project the virtual world onto your wall, essentially.
I'm a little skeptical of the multi-user aspect of that because it's like any cave system. A cave can be really good for one user. And, one of the benefits of caves is you can bring in other people, but the point of view is never right for the other participants. It's only ever perfect for one person.
So that was Karl Krantz, and I actually forgot to ask him about this thing that was all over the tech blogosphere, the 8 billion transistor NVIDIA graphics card. It's called Titan X. You want one. We'll also link to all the videos as they become available from these panel discussions that Karl was talking about. The panel discussions, the workshops that were held at GDC's, a lot of interesting stuff, including scoring music for games and such. Also, he didn't mention, Joe, this headset that you sent me. You sent me a link of a headset called Uncova, and apparently that headset is better than Oculus. It's more immersive than Oculus. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, that's on their own website they're saying that.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
I don't know. If I say on Dragster.com, Dragster is by far the best machinima maker in the universe, I would take that with a grain of salt.
So would I. And I've seen your machinima. But there is a very easy way for all these new headset producers and companies to convince us that their stuff is really good, and that's by sending us one so we can try them out.
You're right.
Also, I need a new computer. So sponsors send us new computers and nice stuff.
That's what I'm going to be working on over this weekend to get us some sponsors so we get new stuff. Which leads me to add one tiny thing, that the 2 Leap Motions that I had sitting around are going to a Second Lifer by the name of Super Suze. Super Suze sent me a message that she really needs those, and I'm going to send it to her. So there you go, Super Suze. Enjoy those Leap Motions. So what are we going to do this weekend, Joe? Any plans other than building?
I'm going to try and find more video clips, music videos in Second Life. See if we can make a nice little collection of them.
And you should also go see Jordan Rain, Sierra Laval's blog. We'll link to it. It has all the dates Jordan is playing in World. I wanted to say that Log Into Life, a documentary that I've been working on, is screening at the Real Abilities Film Fest in New York City, and there's going to be a mixed reality panel discussion on Tuesday the 17th at 10 p.m. Eastern. Wait, that's 7 p.m. Second Life time. We'll link to all the details on the blog. For a limited time, I'm making available the full-length HD English subtitled version of Log Into Life on my YouTube channel. It's hard to get a hold of this movie in America.
So download it.
No, I'm not encouraging folks to, engage in copyright violation. But if you do it, it's not, it's what can I do? Right?
Yeah.
Watch it and come to the panel discussion. It's at the Virtual Ability Auditorium, the Sojourner Auditorium, on Tuesday the 17th at 7 p.m. SLT. Lastly, Bo Hindman, our guest, wrote a fabulous article on MMORPG.com. The article is called "There is No Shame in Playing Second Life."
Yeah, you tell him.
That's the article to share with your eye-rolling neighbor.
Yeah.
Who probably is a taxidermist or some other weird thing going on in his garage.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Come out of that virtual closet, you wimps.
These are literal wimps that are in that closet.
I'll go out and say it. If you don't dare to say it to people that you're in Second Life, you're a wimp. Prove me wrong.
There's so much going on, and we will talk about it next week. That's it for the show today, Joe. Have a good weekend, and bye.
Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Leap Motion, SL Go by On Live, Stitcher, Ison, Bot Girls Identity Circus, Caravel Design, Vicar Creations, Humanoid Animations, Loki Elliott, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Mad P Games, Angel Red Couture, Fallen Gods Incorporated, Blue Moon Enterprises, What's Next, Avacon, and Landscapes Unlimited. Contact the show via Skype, DraxFiles, Avatar DraxFiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.
So Ben Lang, you're the editor-in-chief of the Road to VR blog. You've been on the show before, and you were also at GDC. What was your highlight at GDC?
I don't want to just go along with what everybody else has been saying, but there's a reason they've been saying it, and it is Steam VR or HTC Vive, whatever you want to call it. It's a very impressive experience.
Why is TechCrunch calling it the future of VR, or the Telegraph in the UK saying HTC Vive will make it possible that we can hang out in VR and possibly dance?
Well, so first of all, the first thing I just want to clear up is the HTC Vive is just the headset, and Steam VR is kind of the overarching platform. And it consists of the headset, controllers, and then 2 base stations or more for tracking. So it enables the kind of performance that we've seen on headsets like the Oculus Rift, which is very good, but it enables it in a large space. They're saying up to 15 by 15 feet with just 2 base stations. So it takes this experience, which is very great, which puts your head inside of a virtual space and actually opens it up for you to walk around and gives you 2 controllers to reach out and touch that space. Knowing what I know about Second Life, which granted is not very much, I know that building is a big part of it. To have controllers in there to reach out, and instead of saying, okay, I'm going to create this box with a mouse, imagine just reaching out onto one of the sides of that box and just pulling it out with your hands and pulling it apart, or scaling it with your hands. It is a whole new intuitive way of interacting with a virtual space.
And they also have Source 2, their engine now available for free. How does that play into it?
If you want to make a game for Steam VR, Source 2 is where you're going to want to start, because obviously they're integrating with their engine first. They've also been doing a lot of research and development regarding the best and most efficient ways to render graphics in virtual reality, because it's not kind of a trivial thing. You have to take what would normally be a 2D screen, just one frame. You have to create a 3D image, and you have to push at a very high pixel density. VR is going to be rendering, your 2K, your 4K coming up very soon. A lot of the prototype headsets out right now are already in the kind of 2K display range.
So what you're describing is the possibility of transforming your little spare room into a holodeck, because you can actually walk around in the space a little bit.
We have to be relative here. What the relative term is right now is it is a large space. It is much more immersive, especially with their controllers that allow you to reach out. One of the demos that they showed at GDC was an application called Tilt Brush, which is basically like a three-dimensional painting program where you can start your controller at one point in space, pick a color, and then just paint all in 3 dimensions.
How do they avoid you bumping into a wall?
They have this system that they call the chaperone. When you approach a real wall, they pop up a grid-like wall. You gain a confidence in the system where you can really just start to forget about those walls and say, okay, if I'm going to run into something, it's going to let me know, and I don't have to think about it.
All right, absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much, Ben. Let's go back to our basements.
Yeah, I got to get down there actually and clear out a space for this system. So it's not going to end anytime soon. It's only gonna reemerge because it'll become more true than ever.
It's a free range gamer that has a little bit more, just like a organic chicken.
Exactly.
15 by 15 versus 4 by 4.
Yeah,
that's an improvement.